Hello everybody and welcome back to another Oscar prediction video where today I will be taking a look at the category of Best Cinematography. So this is the final below the line tech category that I'm going to be looking at in this series, and it's definitely the hardest one to pick this year. There's three movies that all pose a serious threat to win. There's one movie that has the majority of critics awards, one movie that has BAFTA, and one movie that has Critics' Choice. And it's very close between those three movies, I feel. And this is a category where I'm curious for the response I'm going to get, because I think every year you have to have at least one no guts, no glory, and I think this is mine. I think the movie that I'm predicting to win in this category is maybe not the consensus choice that the most people are predicting, but I think that's good. Like, you gotta throw them for a loop at least once. You gotta predict at least one surprise, and I think this is mine. Fifth most likely to win is Frankenstein. So the cinematography of this movie is done by Dan Laustin, who is a frequent collaborator with Del Toro. They were previously nominated for both Shape of Water and Nightmare Alley. And I did like the cinematography in both of those movies a lot more than I like the cinematography in this film. I don't want to be mean, but the cinematography in this film is one of my biggest flaws with the movie. I found it so distracting, especially in the first half when not that much is happening, how I swear there is not one single solitary shot in this film where the camera is still. Even when it's like a quiet, dramatic conversation scene, the camera is always slowly pushing in, or slowly pulling out, or slowly panning to one side even when there's nothing to pan to. And it really does feel like Dan Laustin and Del Toro are under the assumption that we can't keep the camera still for even a moment, otherwise the audience will get bored. And it just strikes me as pretentious. It has sort of this overtly produced Netflix sheen to it. I'm also not a fan of the color palette in the film. It almost feels like this movie was shot to be in black and white, and if I ever do watch the movie again, I'll change the settings of my computer to make it black and white. I think that's going to be a more visually enjoyable experience. Sorry, Dan Laustin. I've liked your work with Del Toro in the past, but this is just not cutting it, and I'm not a fan of this nomination. Fortunately, I don't think I have to worry about it winning because it's barely won any of the precursors, and I think most of the conversation is with the top three in this category. Sorry, but just not a fan. Fourth most likely to win is Marty Supreme. So the DP is Darius Kanji, who has previously worked on Evita and Bardo. This is his third nomination. And I will say, I do like the cinematography in Marty Supreme, heck of a lot more than Frankenstein. It's not the most showy, but it does what it needs to do exceptionally well. It does really you get a sense of the time period, while also getting a sense of the frantic, hectic nature of a lot of the stuff that happens in the film. It's very well done, very controlled. It's just expertly. It's not the showiest in the world. I think a lot of people are not going to think of the cinematography as the first thing they think of when they think about this movie. They're going to think about Chalamet's performance, and they're going to think about the editing. The cinematography does the job remarkably well, but I think when you look at the top three and how strong that is, it's one of those cases where it's unfortunately number 4 because of the really strong competition through no fault of its own. Third most likely to win is One Battle After Another. So the DP on this film is Michael Bauman, who has done a lot of camera work on various movies, but this is one of his first big movies as a cinematographer. He previously worked on Licorice Pizza, also for PTA. But yeah, he doesn't have a ton of movies under his belt as a cinematographer, which is crazy because the cinematography in this film is really, really good. There's so many specific moments, like the car chase at the end with it going up and down the hills, that moment when Chase Infinity slams the car door and the camera is attached to the door, that one shot where the two guys are meeting in the desert, mostly stuff from the last act of the film I'm noticing, but there are impressive moments throughout. This is a really, really well shot movie. Unfortunately, it's one of those moments where I think a lot of the great cinematography moments are going to be attributed to PTA and less to Michael Bauman, especially since he's such a new DP. However, he did win the BAFTA for this movie, and that is certainly not nothing. I do feel, however, that when you look at the past winners of this category, there's not really another film that feels like this. Most of the winners are either the prettiest pictures or the most technically impressive cinematography, like the most complicated oneers. And the top two movies in this category do fill those roles, but my instinct is that One Battle is number 3, even though it won BAFTA, even though it would be really, really deserving if it did win. It is incredibly strong work, but I do feel like there's not another cinematography winner that feels like this, and for that reason, I do have it at number 3, unfortunately. Second most likely to win is Sinners. So, the DP on this film is Autumn Durald-Arkapaw on her first nomination. She's previously worked on Black Panther Wakanda Forever as well as the Loki series. Now, what's notable is that there has never been a female winner in the Best Cinematography category ever. So, Autumn would be making history if she were to win for this. And she has a pretty good shot. She's won most of the important not the big precursors, but the critics' precursors. So many of the individual critics groups that had a cinematography prize gave it to Sinners. And I think a lot of that is because it was shot on film, on 35 millimeter, which people usually love, and also because of the really technically impressive I Lied to You oneer in the middle of the movie. I think a lot of people are always impressed by a oneer. And so this could win. This has strong, good cinematography, has one very big showy moment of cinematography. It would make sense if this won Best Cinematography, on top of the narrative it has with Arkapaw being the first woman to win. But here's the problem. I love this movie, but I've always maintained ever since I saw it in theaters that Sinners has one flaw, and it is the lighting. The shadows in this film are so dark that it's often difficult to make out what's happening on screen. And this is a criticism that is not just mine. I've heard a lot of other people say the same thing. And it is really, really unfortunate that that's the one issue I have with the film, and it's an issue that other people share. I think that's going to get in the way of it winning. I think when I saw this movie winning the majority of critics' precursors, I thought it was just going to sweep. But then it lost BAFTA and it lost Critics' Choice. And it is surprising that it lost those two big prizes. And my gut is telling me that while it could definitely still happen, I think enough people... I don't know how many people know that the DP of this film is a woman, and I don't know how many people care about the history making that this win would accomplish. But I do think some people might be like, ooh, oneer, I'm going to vote for it. Because people really, really love oneers. At the same time, though, it's not what I'm going to predict. My prediction, number 1 most likely to win, is Train Dreams. So the DP on this film is Adolfo Veloso, who has very little memorable under his belt. I guess you could count the 2021 Indie Jockey, but other than that, he's done barely anything, which makes his work on this film all the more impressive. This would be my personal vote in the category. It has truly some of the most visually spectacular cinematography of the year. This is one of those films where any frame could be hung on your wall. It is just a gorgeous, gorgeous film to look at, and it won Critics' Choice. Now, normally I would be very skeptical to go with something that had a lone Critics' Choice win. However, I do think in this category, my gut instinct is that voters are going to default to the prettiest movie, and that is undeniably Train Dreams. Nothing against the other films in this category, but they have very practical cinematography, and this is just... It feels very much like Tree of Life, which I know didn't win, but it's kind of hard to put a pin in it. But I guess the best comparison I could make is All Quiet on the Western Front, that also had really, really beautiful cinematography, also done by a relative unknown at the time, but the film was loved, the film was in Best Picture, and here's the thing. One Battle After Another and Sinners, those movies are gonna win Oscars in other categories. Train Dreams really only has a shot to win an Oscar in this category, and I do think that's gonna give it a leg up, because voters are gonna want to spread the wealth. Like, I voted for One Battle and Sinners in other categories, but Train Dreams deserves to win this. I do think it's just the prettiest movie. It's a movie that is well liked, and to me, it just makes sense. I could be wrong, but everyone's got to have one No Guts, No Glory, and this is mine. So thank you very much for watching, and tune in next time when I will be taking a look at the category of Best Supporting Actor. See you then.